Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the February 26, 2025 meeting of the Fond du Lac City Council. The first item of business is roll call, which is done electronically, and I will declare a quorum is present. The next item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silent reflection. Please rise. Next on our agenda is public hearings, and we have none, so we will move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda finalizes the proposed actions for the meeting. February 12th, 2025 regular council minutes, February 12th, 2025 committee of the whole minutes, and C, list of claims dated February 19th, 2025. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Godfrey and second by Mr. Heisler. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please proceed to vote. And that passes unanimously. Next on our agenda is audience comments, agenda and non-agenda items. The presiding officer will limit speaking time for non-agenda items to 1 minute and items noticed on the agenda to 5 minutes. Ms. Mann, do we have anyone wishing to speak? We do. We do. So first we have Mr. Jim Thomas, who wishes to speak on Ordinance 3792.
Hopefully, I promise this is the last time you'll hear from me for a while. But I just wanted to take this opportunity, seeing our issue that started all this back in August on the agenda. So first and foremost, I want to thank each and every one of you, the council members, city administrators, Chief Joe Moore, the attorney, everybody that's helped us in support of our cause. It shows that you're truly listening and supportive of us and our cause. I would especially like to thank those of you who really went above and beyond to enact some of these changes to municipal codes as they pertain to dangerous dogs. This was our goal from the beginning, but as you heard from our neighbors, as we came here in force, that our issue wasn't simply a dog bite. It was also part of the problem was a nuisance neighbor, an annoying neighbor, a threatening neighbor. So again, to those of you who heard this and picked up on that issue and highlighting those parts of the municipal code, addressing nuisances and annoyances, that was something that would have never occurred to me to address, but it's something that's very effective, I think, in this case. So again, thank you. I want to thank, again, dangerous dogs, but now to me, carrying forward the challenges with all those thanks is it's great to have all these words on paper, but now the issue is how can they and will they be effective? How and will they be enforced? Because to me, that's a huge part of this. We can say all we want on paper, but if there's no action taken on what we have written down, it's pretty much useless to even have these ordinances on paper. So the questions of ours, who's going to force these issues? How? When? Who is the burden on? Is it a burden on the police? Is it a burden on the attorneys? Is it a burden on the victims to find a lawyer? I think there's so many other facets of these issues that could be or should be clarified, would really help in seeing these efforts being put into paper. I think it's only with strict enforcement that any of these laws are effective. It's only with the determination and effort of the that we affect these laws. We just need the support. Sorry, I had too many things down here, so I'll just start speaking from the top of my head. Again, this all started, and I'm not going to go into the details of our dog, but I wanted to circle back that we found out the hard way, my wife and I, that dogs are listed in codes and laws, that your dogs are just property. But I think any of you that are pet owners and lovers, we all realize our dogs are more than just property. They're valued members of our home. They bring us companionship, love, laughter. lasting memories. Their value, I don't think there can be a dollar amount assigned to. Will the law ever truly reflect that? And that's way beyond my pay grade. I doubt it ever will. But again, in all these cases, in a case like this, I think it'll help at the very beginning when the call is placed of a dog attack, that it's much deeper than that. It's not just the attack. I mean, obviously there's a vicious or there's a wayward animal. There's probably a not irresponsible owner involved. And there's a lot of facets to be addressed. We see it on paper just as a dog attack. Again, in my case, having witnessed it, the words can't describe what it looks like when you're seeing a vicious dog attack, when you're seeing your animal tore apart in front of you. But then you find out later the law really doesn't support that. There's no real remedy to equal what you saw in terms of punishment. And I don't know if we'll ever get there, but again, I just want to come all the way back to at least we had something on paper today. I saw we added something in Fond du Lac, so that tells me we're being heard, and thank you for that.
Thank you. Next, we have Peggy Chichek. I'm sorry, I know I've had to pronounce your name before, and I apologize. All right, next we have Peggy, who also wishes to speak on dangerous dogs.
I just want to say we are grateful and we're thankful that we're to this point. There's been a lot of sadness and threats through our neighborhood for months that made us feel like hostages. I'm glad everybody is listening, and I pray and I hope that another dog doesn't run into the same situation there as my husband. This happened with him and our dog too, and no remorse, no nothing. We filled out a police report. We never heard back until I called, and I was told I had to go online and get the report back. They never called us or anything. I don't know what the protocol is, but as I'm with Jim and I'm with our neighborhood, that I hope that this incident, we don't see this again, and if it does happen, that the city has somebody to enforce it. I know the Humane Society used to do this. I have a lot of friends that have worked the Humane Society. I know they're not there anymore. I know we don't have anybody that governs dogs, but I'm praying and hoping that with this, these new ordinances go in effect and they will be handled. And I just want to thank you for time and considering this, and for everybody that went through all these new ordinances, and I pray they go in effect. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Laura DeGallier, who wishes to speak on the resolution for World Migratory Bird Day.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to speak in support of Resolution 9167. In the spring, I drive to a protected wetland, Sioux Place Marsh, and walk to the end of the boardwalk and start looking at birds. I go birding. That's how easy it is to take in the wonders and mystery of the birds returning to what weeks before had felt like a barren, white, frozen tundra. In some birding circles, people say that anyone who looks at birds is a birder, a kind, inclusive sentiment that also overlooks the forces that create and shape subcultures. I've cared about birds and other animals for my entire life, and I've written about them throughout my 2 decades as a science writer, but I mark the moment when I specifically chose to devote time and energy to them as the moment I became a birder. Those words are adapted from Ed Young, who is a well-known nature writer and a birder. Amy Tan is also a well-known writer and has also joined the list of birders who are writing about their experiences. You do not need to be a well-known writer or even well-versed in birds to love their chatter in the morning and marvel at the beauty of their colors or marvel at their ability to survive below 0 temperatures to be a birder. You can be a birder by planting bird-friendly flowers, shrubs, and trees in your yard. World Migratory Bird Day is here to remind all of us that birds are an essential part of our world. We have lost 3 billion birds in the last 50 years, and you can help turn the tide of that loss by making your yard an oasis for the resident birds and those that migrate through. Just like we need gas stations and restaurants on a long trip, so do the birds. The migrants travel further than most of us do in 1 year or even in a lifetime, and they do it every year 2 times. Please join us on May 2nd and 3rd to follow our Birdwalk leaders, Carrie and Dave Saloff, as we wander through areas in our city and have them point out the migrants and residents that we spot along our walk. We are also providing an educational opportunity to learn more about the birds around us with an evening with Amber Eschenbach at the library on April 24th at 6 p.m. She will be bringing a kestrel that she rehabilitated with her. Please join us for any or all of these events that will be happening on April 24th, May 2nd, and 3rd. I urge adoption of Resolution 9167 for the declaration of World Migratory Bird Day as celebrated in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. And thanks again to Paul DeFries for completing our application. And although birders are very nice people and we don't have any rowdiness, I have been asked to say that we appreciate and thank the police department in Fond du Lac for keeping us safe.
Thank you. And that concludes our audience comments. So next we'll move on to our action items. First is resolution number 9167, which is our resolution declaring May 3rd as World Migratory Bird Day. Our introduction is our Public Works Director, Mr. DeVries.
Thank you, President Brault. As you just heard from Mr. Gallier, there's activities going around May 3rd, May 2nd and 3rd, and in April regarding Migratory Bird Day. And so this resolution would allow us to submit in for our Bird City, which we've done for many, many years now. So I don't think I need to explain any more than what Ms. DeGallier did, because she always does a good job. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I would recommend approval.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Mullen and second by Mr. Heisler. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, I would just like to add my thanks to Ms. DeGallier for all the work that she did, and everybody's already voting anyway, so please proceed to vote. And that passes unanimously. Well, thank you to Ms. DeGallier and Mr. DeVries for everything to make that resolution happen, and we're looking forward to World Migratory Bird Day. Next is resolution number 9168, a resolution authorizing the filing of applications with the Federal Transit Administration, an operating administration of the United States Department of Transportation, for federal transportation assistance authorized by 49 U.S.C. Chapter 53, Title 23, United States Code, or other federal statutes administered by the Federal Transit Administration. And once again, our introduction is by our Public Works Director, Mr. DeVries.
Thank you, President Brault. I'd probably be more brief than you were reading that whole thing. So this is a request from FTA for all agencies receiving funds from the federal government. So it's a basic authorizing resolution that we have to do from time to time, and we're required to get it done by, I think, next week. So I would be happy to answer any questions. This basically helps us keep our grants going in order.
Right. Are there any questions from council? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Schussler and second by Mr. Godfrey. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please proceed to vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Next is ordinance number 3808, an ordinance amending numerous chapters of the Code of the City of Fond du Lac related to alcohol in city parks, battery, dangerous dogs, digging and excavating in city parks, animal bites, and park closing hours. And our introduction is by our city attorney, Ms. Hoffman.
Thank you, President Brault. This is the same ordinance I brought you 2 weeks ago, though we did add some language that Councilmember Schussler had requested to the dangerous dog ordinance. There's an additional section. It's number 7 in it. It's nothing in this chapter shall be construed as prohibiting the abatement of a public nuisance by the city or its officials in accordance with the laws of the state of Wisconsin and/or Chapter 476 of the Code of the City of Fond du Lac. And I think he intended that to bring in all of the other state code sections that we also referenced in the memo. Is Anyway, so that is the one change we made since I brought it to you 2 weeks ago. I'm happy to answer any questions. I had one other comment. I think there was some concern regarding how this all, if it was sufficient and how it all works. And I hope with the memo that we answered that I think there is enough within the state code and also other portions of our code that we are pretty well addressing dogs. And I think the additions that we brought to you help with that as well.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions from council? Mr. Mullen.
Thank you. I want to thank you, Ms. Hoffman, for putting up with my many phone calls and emails about this issue. And even though it does not go as far as I would like it, I do feel like this has made some real progress in terms of putting some things together to make it possible. And also, I'd like to thank Mr. Schuessler for coming up with the nuisance aspect of it. I think that's going to also add some teeth to this that was necessary. So I am in support of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from council? Otherwise, I will entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Mullen and second by Mr. Godfrey. Is there any further discussion? I would just like to echo Mr. Mullen's comments. Thank you to all the work that went into it, and thank you to the Thomases and all of your neighborhood for coming forward specifically on this dog issue, and hopefully this will help prevent this situation from happening in our community to anyone ever again. So thank you for making sure that this happened. With that, please proceed to vote. And that passes unanimously. Next is ordinance number 3809, an ordinance amending chapters 255 and 720 of the Code of the City of Fond du Lac related to pools, spas, and ponds, accessory dwelling units and lot sizes, and billboards. And our introduction is by our Community Development Director, Ms. Benson.
Thank you, Ms. Brault. As you're aware, that every parcel within the city has a land use, and it is regulated using the zoning code. And so from time to time, we need to make adjustments and amendments to the code to either reflect changes in technology or other things that are happening in the world. And so in this regard, let's start with pools. So pools technically fall under our building code, but there's really a lot of consistency with the zoning code. And this in particular deals with in-ground pools. We did clean up some of the other language in the pool world, but for the most part, what really it comes down to is that in-ground pools now have technology where the cover can handle the weight of up to 450 pounds. And so we've had a number of homeowners who have asked us, if that would be sufficient rather than always having a fence around the parcel. And so we did our research, we talked to other communities, we talked to pool manufacturers, we reviewed the ASTM standards, we talked to the state, and based on all that feedback, we felt that amending our code to allow for the pool covers that are have that weight capability for in-ground pools only, for lots that are 15,000 square feet or more, because again, you also then have some separation between lots, and you can have a better opportunity of making sure that there's no, people who are wandering through your yard. And so Plan Commission recommended approval on that. Next, we go to accessory structures and lot sizes. And so we had requirements in regards to, you could have a 100 square foot accessory storage building or a 200 square foot accessory storage building. But what we've seen is that we have lot sizes in the city that are above certain sizes, and so that proportionality doesn't really hold anymore. And so what the new code reflects is accommodating that as you have a larger lot size, the proportionality of your accessory storage unit, basically a storage shed or a garden shed, is now more in proportion with the size of your lot. So that's what it comes down to. We've also made adjustments to garage size for detached garages, because we also know that we've gotten bigger vehicles. So your standard garage size that we had before really doesn't accommodate a lot of the vehicles in today's market. Next, we go on to billboards. And so under the city code, we created an ordinance where we can mitigate billboards. So billboards, as we know and love, used to be very static. And now they have the ability to hold multiple messages. And so you notice that a number of our billboards about the last decade started to go away as they converted to the digital. But then we kind of stalled. And that's because there really weren't any other billboards within the city that the billboard companies were looking to change. However, there are some along the interstate. And the ones on the interstate are already larger than what is outlined in our code. We didn't factor that in when we drafted our billboard ordinance. And so we're not making those billboards along the interstate any larger. What we're doing is just acknowledging their current size. But by accommodating that in our code, we're now creating the possibility that when they convert those to digital, we can now get rid of some of those other static billboards within the city under our mitigation process. So for every one new digital sign, we get rid of two static signs. So we see this as a win-win for both the city as well for the community and motoring along Interstate 41. And then finally, accessory dwelling units. So this is one of our many ongoing efforts to help facilitate housing within the city as part of the housing study. And so we made some changes to our minimum residential lot size last year. We created the neighborhood mixed use district, and this is the next step in the process, which creates the ability to create an additional dwelling unit on your property, either as part of your structure itself or as a separate unit on your property, and then outlines the conditions by where that is possible. Right now, we're allowing those under with special conditions, and so that code that you've read through are those conditions. So as long as you meet those conditions, then we can issue that permit. We're starting out with properties that are single-family homes only. Again, this is still a relatively new concept for many communities. And so you can't really quench your thirst by drinking from a fire hose. You get really wet, real messy, and so that's why you need to progress with caution. So we're going to start with single-family dwelling units in any of our residential districts, and then we can revisit over time and start expanding the availability of those accessory dwelling units into other residential properties once we all realize what works and what doesn't work so that we don't create any negative impacts to those neighborhoods.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council? Ms. Leering.
I don't know. I mentioned this a week ago, or 2 weeks ago. I just think, we have a lot of ordinances, and I think we keep adding things, and I understand we need to have things look attractive and be safe and things like that. I think some of the ordinances that we have, we put up barriers. Some of them, the barriers can be for small business. I do like the ordinance about the pools. I think that's really good. Like for people in the city, especially it helps people in the pool and spa business versus if we went backwards and had more restrictions. So that's a pleasant one, and that's a good one for small business if you own a pool business. But one of the things I don't like about the ordinance is that we put everything together. And I wish some of that stuff could just be separated and worded a little bit better on the agenda so it's not so obscure to the public. Because, I think it's helpful, especially if you're going to come here and you want to say something about a particular agenda item. Also, like if people come, if the agenda comes out on a Friday and everything's slammed together, you don't have a lot of time to go on and click on all the different things that come with the resolution when it's not worded more clear or when it's not separated out.
Sure, but I'd like to note that this actually was a public hearing before the Plan Commission, so this isn't the first time that the public has been made aware of these ordinances.
Right, but not everybody can make it to those.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's just, just because there's another one and, right above it with the animal bites in the city parks. It's all different things. And then the one that we had 2 weeks ago too. So I just feel like they should be separated out. And because otherwise I feel like I'm sitting here being a rubber stamper too. And so it happens in the commission or the committees. And then I should just rubber stamp it when it gets here. So I'm just asking if that stuff can get separated and worded a little bit better. Not that it's worded poorly, I just wish it could be less obscure.
Thank you. Mr. Mullen?
Thank you. Well, I'm very happy with the addition of ADUs. I don't have a pool, so, but I understand why that would be important to people. You know, we've talked a lot about housing for the last 6 months, almost a year, and I'm really pleased with the speed that we are addressing this as we can. I mean, we cannot go out and build housing. We are not a development company. We have to rely on the private sector to do that. That's why we're in this situation, because the private sector hasn't been able to do that. But I'm really pleased that your department specifically is taking these suggestions seriously, doing what we can to make things easier for people. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Heisler?
Yeah, just a quick comment. I'm totally in favor, and thank you for all the explanation, Diane. I thought your explanation was wonderful. I have some relatives who are affected by the accessory dwelling situation, and they are very excited about this opportunity. So I think that's really neat, and it's also kind of cool that we're going to be able to baby step our way through this, because I think, like you mentioned, it's kind of at the beginning stages. And also, I wanted to commend you on the billboard situation, because there are a lot of, for lack of a better term, old eyesore billboards that eventually will be able to convert to digital, and I think that'll be a really nice addition to the community. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Zimmerman?
Thank you. Ms. Benson, just want to rehash something from our Plan Commission meeting that I found interesting. The dwelling units, they can't be prefab homes, correct?
It cannot be a manufactured home. So in the world of zoning and building, there's different types of home. There's a manufactured home, formerly known as a mobile home, which is actually governed under the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, the federal, well, never mind. So anyway, they get a red certification when they're constructed, whereas modular home, tiny homes, other homes actually comply with local, state, and building codes. And so when you get a manufactured home, you're actually getting it from a retailer. When you build a modular home or a tiny home or other type of home, you're actually working with a contractor. How those are financed are also different. And so that's why there's a differentiation in the code between allowing like a modular home or a tiny home versus a manufactured home.
Thank you, Ms. Benson. Yeah, this is something that we found interesting at Plan Commission, and there was a lot of excitement over these, so yeah, I'm in full support.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions, so I just have one. I'm just kind of curious, like, has there been a lot of interest already about accessory dwelling units? Like, have you had people coming and saying, like, they'd really like to see this happen? Because I know it's kind of a big thing in the world of housing right now is ADUs.
We have not had a huge amount of, interest. I think a lot more people are probably interested more in the interior ones than they are in the exterior or separate units.
Okay. Well, that's good to know, because I know, especially as we see our population aging, I think a lot of people are looking into this possibility to, have aging parents who might be able to stay with family but still have kind of your separate spaces. So I'm really excited to see where this goes, to see what kind of interest there is if this ordinance passes. So thank you for all the work that went into this as we're, dealing with the housing issue and trying to find new ways to create housing. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no other questions, I will entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Heisler and second by Mr. Godfrey. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I did realize one thing I wanted to point out with Ms. Learing's comments is with any of these where we've got multiple ordinance changes, we could always pull something out if there's something we wanted to discuss or vote on separately. So in the future, if that's how it's on the agenda. So, but thank you for those comments. Otherwise, seeing no other discussion, please proceed to vote. And that passes with Mr. Schlissler voting nay. And that ends our action items, and we have no input items, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Zimmerman, second by Mr. Heisler. This is not debatable. Please proceed to vote. And we are adjourned.